Did you know that Warren Buffett puked out his lunch before even meeting with his audience? There's countless of professionals out there who are much better speaker and can share much more valuable tips about how to become an effective speaker. But some of you probably recognize Warren Buffett as a genius investor and also one of the richest person in the world. But did you know that he's also one of the best speakers out there in the world? And he owes it to the Dale Carnegie college diploma that he obtained many years ago. And he attributed his success to the Dale Carnegie college diploma that he got from that university itself. Hey, I'm Imran and I used to be so anxious as well when it comes to meeting out my audience or meeting someone new. And so I spent hours online and spent a lot of time and resources finding the best ideas about how you can be an effective speaker. So I would like to share with you 5 tips from the big man himself about how you can be an effective speaker just like Warren Buffett. Tip number 1. Always be jotting down notes. Now, always remember to jot down notes about what you want to share, what you want to ask, about what you want to convey. Because trying to remember an entire script can be extremely daunting and almost impossible unless you're making a drama series. So when you are trying to remember a full script, you realize that your thoughts are unable to come together. It's less fluid. Your tonality becomes robotic. Number 2. Be more energetic. Now, more often than not, when we have something to share, you start to think faster than you can speak. Your mind starts to clam up. You start to get the nerves, and it creates a lot of static in your thoughts. It's not flowing as effectively. So, one of the ways is to try to pass the energy out to your audience through gesture or your voice, or maybe you can even speak about something you're truly passionate about, and you realize that the flow is much more smoother than trying to speak about something you're not particularly familiar about. Now, number 3, always try to remember your audience name. Either you're speaking to someone or a crowd. Always try to remember 1 or 2 names in between. Why? Because it shows involvement, it shows engagement, and it shows friendliness. To every individual, their name is the sweetest sounding word that you can ever hear in any other language. So always try to remember their name to create a rapport between them. So let's say you are trying to present a point. You can actually include their name in the conversation or the sentence to create an involvement within the conversation. Whenever you mention their name in any context in a conversation or a presentation, it shows respect, it shows friendliness, and it also shows involvement. So whenever you have something to share, try to include their name into the conversation, and you find that they'll be much more committed to the entire idea. Number 4. Point number 4 is all about posture accompanied by your gesture. So some ideas about gesture. You want to make emphasize on your points, and you can say point number 1, number 2, number 3. We start with 1, then we move on to the second idea to the third idea. Because these gestures act as a visual aid to your audience, and it helps them remember and receive the idea better. Posture, when you're talking to someone, you wouldn't want to be facing sideways and expect them to feel involved in a conversation. It doesn't work that way. You have to face them head on, feet planted to the ground, and not slouch. Have an open posture, and try to introduce a bit of gesture, a bit of facial features to show that you're actually committed and involved in the conversation. Eye contact, 80% of the time, you should be facing them, and 20% of the time, you should be looking elsewhere. So this combination will actually improve the whole reception in your conversation and make them more involved in what you have to say. Tip number 5. Tip number 5 has nothing to do about speaking, but it's all about listening. Now, I understand most of us have very limited time to speak to our audience each time we meet them. And we tend to be very eager to share everything we have within that short period of time. But what happens is that you realize that they get very overwhelmed with what you have to say, and what you have to say and what you want to hear may not be the same thing. But if we opt to listen to what they have to share, you realize that you do not need to have to do as much heavy lifting as before, because sometimes by listening you get to ask the right questions, and that will lead you to the right answers. More often than not, when you listen more, it shows a higher level of involvement. It shows you're showing respect to them and makes you look much more approachable. And that's what we want. We want audience to be more involved in what we have to share. And we want to build a rapport with our audience. And listening is one of the fastest way for us to do so. Now, listening skill is not something that is just practiced by amateurs. It's practiced even by the brightest mind in the world. Virgin Group founder Charles Branson mentions that if you aren't listening, you are missing out. So folks, devote huge portion of your time to actually listen to what your audience have to say before you present your points. Ask them questions, listen, and then share your thoughts. This flow process will definitely increase the level of commitment between yourself and your audience. So folks, just to summarize the 5 points for Warren Buffett himself. Firstly being making points about what you want to say or what you want to share. Second is about being more energetic in your conversation so that it doesn't clamp up your nerves and doesn't inhibit your speech. Third is all about remembering the other person's name and mentioning them to get a higher level of commitment in your conversation. Fourth is about posture, how you present yourself, how you stand, and how you introduce gestures as visual aid. And 5 is nothing about speaking, but all about listening, so that when you listen better, you realize that you can speak better. Hence, if you find that whatever is shared earlier is very useful for you, please share with other of your friends or family members who might also find this useful for themselves in their daily lives or workspace. Because ultimately, when you can speak better, you will live better. Thank you.
Yeah.